Imagine you are one of the richest men in Kabul. It's the summer of 2021. You have the house behind the high walls, the imported car, the bank accounts, the respect. For years, your money has been a shield, the thing that kept you and your family safe and comfortable above the chaos. And then, in a single week, everything inverts. The government falls. The Taliban walk into the capital, and you wake up to a terrifying new truth. Your wealth is no longer your shield. It has become the brightest target painted on your back. In most of the world, money buys safety. In Afghanistan, money can get you killed. And tonight, I'm going to show you exactly why. Let's begin with the most basic fact, the one that flips everything you assume about being rich. Almost everywhere on earth, wealth makes you safer. You buy the house in the good neighborhood. You install the alarm. You live behind security that quietly keeps danger away. Money builds a wall between you and the worst the world can do, but that wall only works if something invisible is holding it up. The police, the courts, the banks, the contracts, a whole hidden machine that protects what you own. Now imagine that machine simply switches off, all of it, in a single afternoon. That is what happened in Afghanistan. And the moment it did, the rich didn't become safer than everyone else. They became the most hunted people in the country. Here is the first reason why. When the system collapses, the wealthy stop being citizens and start being prizes. In the weeks right after the takeover, kidnappings exploded. Local reports counted more than 40 businessmen abducted in just the first 2 months in some areas, and the real number was almost certainly higher because there was barely a functioning government left to even keep count. And these were not random crimes. They were hunts. Kidnappers studied who drove the nice car, who owned the busy shop, whose children went to the better school. Wealth was no longer something you enjoyed quietly. It was a signal, flashing in the dark, telling predators exactly where to strike. Let me tell you about one case, because the numbers alone will stay with you. A prominent doctor in the city of Mazar-e-Sharif was abducted. The kidnappers demanded more than $700,000. The family negotiated, scraped, and paid $350,000, a fortune. And after the money was handed over, the doctor was killed anyway. Sit with that for a second, because it breaks the one rule you think you can rely on. In the movies, you pay the ransom and you go home. In the real collapse, paying the ransom is no guarantee of anything. Another wealthy man's family was told the price of his life was $3 million. They couldn't raise it. He was killed too. So here's the impossible math of being rich in a lawless place. If you can't pay, they kill you. And sometimes, even if you can pay, they kill you anyway. Your fortune doesn't buy your safety. It only sets the opening price on your own head. Have you ever thought of your money as the thing that makes you a target, rather than the thing that protects you? Now here's the second danger. And this one is stranger, because it attacks not your body, but the very nature of your wealth. In Afghanistan, after the collapse, the rich discovered something horrifying. Their money still existed. They just couldn't reach it. When the government fell, the banking system seized up almost overnight. And it wasn't only the local banks. Around $9 billion of Afghanistan's national reserves, money held abroad, was frozen by the United States. The financial bloodstream of the entire country simply stopped flowing. So picture yourself again as that wealthy man. On paper, you are a millionaire, your account balance hasn't changed, but the banks have slammed their doors. Withdrawals are capped at a trickle. People stood in lines for hours, for days, just to pull out a tiny fraction of their own savings. Think about what that means. You can be rich, genuinely rich, and unable to get $200 of your own cash. Your wealth becomes a number on a frozen screen. Real enough to make you a target, useless enough that you can't even spend it. And it got worse. The country's largest money exchange market, a famous hub called Sarai Shahzada, the beating heart of Afghan finance, at times shut down completely for weeks, because there simply wasn't enough physical cash in the country to trade. So now your wealth has a new problem. If you can't trust the banks, where do you put it? And that question leads directly to the third danger. When money can't live safely in a bank, it has to become physical. And physical wealth is the most dangerous wealth of all. With the banks frozen and untrustworthy, fortunes had to take a form you could hold. Cash, stacked and hidden. Gold, sewn into clothing or buried. Jewelry, locked away. The wealth of an entire class of people moved out of the digital world and into shoeboxes, safes, and holes in the ground. But the moment your fortune becomes a physical object in your home, You are no longer protected by anything. There is no insurance. There is no police report that brings it back. If someone takes it, it is simply gone. And so, possibly, are you. And people knew the money had nowhere to hide. There were reports of fighters going door to door, searching homes, robbing as they went, hunting for valuables and for information about who had worked with the old government. Your gold under the floorboards wasn't a secret. It was a rumor waiting to be followed, so the rich were trapped in a brutal triangle. They couldn't keep their wealth in the bank because the bank had failed them. They couldn't keep it in their hands because that made them a target for robbery. And they couldn't easily get it out of the country because the borders and the airports had become a nightmare. Where do you put a fortune when every option is dangerous? Now we reach the fourth danger, and this is the one that turns the whole story darker. Because so far, the threat has come from criminals. But in a collapsed state, the most powerful threat of all can be the new people in charge. After 2021, wealth wasn't just a target for kidnappers. It became a mark of suspicion. If you were rich, the question hanging over you was simple and dangerous. How did you get it? Did you earn it under the old fallen government? Did you work with the foreigners, the NATO forces, the Western companies that had poured money into the country for 20 years? For thousands of people, the answer to those questions was yes. And that yes was now a liability. The Taliban conducted searches for former officials, for those who had worked with foreign forces, for the architects of the old order. The very connections that had made you wealthy and powerful in the old Afghanistan now made you a person of interest in the new one. And there's a colder layer still. For wealthy foreigners and dual nationals, being valuable became its own trap. Analysts have described a pattern of what they call hostage diplomacy, where detained Westerners became bargaining chips, leverage in negotiations between governments. Your worth, your passport, your connections, the things that made you important, could be the exact reasons you were held. So now the danger isn't just the kidnapper in the night, it's the knock on the door in daylight. When you are rich in a place like this, you are watched from below by criminals and from above by the state. There is no safe direction to look. Are you starting to feel how completely the meaning of wealth has flipped? But we are not done. Because there is a fifth force in this story, and it threatens everyone, rich and poor alike. Chaos itself. Even the powerful are not safe in Afghanistan. The group known as ISIS-K, a rival even to the Taliban, claimed around 60 attacks in a single recent year. And they don't only strike the weak. They have assassinated senior figures. In one case, they killed a Taliban government minister himself. Think about what that tells you. If a man with a ministry, with guards, with the full backing of those now in power, can be killed, then what exactly does your private fortune protect you from? In a place this volatile, money cannot buy you out of the blast radius. The violence doesn't check your bank balance before it arrives. And then there is the strangest source of dangerous wealth of all, the one Afghanistan was once most famous for. For years, the country was the world's largest producer of opium, the raw material of heroin. Enormous, shadowy fortunes were built on those poppy fields. But then the Taliban announced a ban on opium cultivation. And what happened next is a perfect, brutal lesson in dangerous money. Cultivation in some areas dropped sharply. And as the supply was choked, the price of existing opium stockpiles reportedly shot up, in some estimates from around $100 a kilo to over $700. So the people sitting on stored opium suddenly held something worth many times more than before. But think about what kind of wealth that is. It is illegal. It is hunted. It cannot be banked, cannot be declared, cannot be protected by any law, because it exists entirely outside the law. It is a fortune that can only ever be hidden, fought over, and bled for. The most valuable thing in the room, and the most lethal thing to be caught holding. So let's step back and ask the real question, the one underneath all of this. Why is being rich in Afghanistan so dangerous, when being rich almost anywhere else feels so safe? And the answer reveals something most of us never think about. Your wealth, wherever you live, is not actually protected by your money. It's protected by everything around your money. The police who will come if you call. The courts that will enforce what you own. The banks that hold your savings and let you reach them. The insurance that replaces what is stolen. The quiet, boring, invisible machinery of a functioning society. You never see that machinery. You never thank it. You barely know it's there. but it is the only reason your wealth feels like safety instead of danger. Afghanistan is what happens when that machinery is torn out. And once it's gone, wealth reverts to its rawest, oldest, most terrifying form. Not a shield, but a flame. Something that draws every predator in the dark straight toward you. That is why, when the country fell, so many of its richest and most capable people didn't dig in to defend their fortunes. They ran. Doctors, engineers, business owners, entire families who had spent lifetimes building something. Millions fled to neighboring countries and beyond, leaving homes and assets behind. Because they understood the new arithmetic faster than anyone. In a collapsed state, the more you have to lose, and the more reasons the world has to come and take it from you. So now think about your own life for a moment. If you have ever felt safe because of what you own, this is worth remembering. That safety was never really about the number in your account. It was about the invisible scaffolding holding that number up, the law, the order. The institutions you forget exist precisely because they work so well. Take that scaffolding away, and the richest person in the city becomes the most vulnerable. The fortune that was a fortress becomes a beacon, and the smartest move is no longer to count your money, it's to run from it. So let's go back to where we started. You are one of the richest men in Kabul. The walls, the car, the accounts, the respect. For years, all of it kept you safe. And then the machine switched off, and you finally understood the most dangerous truth about wealth. It was never the thing protecting you. It was the thing everyone else was waiting to take.